And hello everybody, it is I, Lightning Bliss, and I am back with another story / speed paint story time, basically. Once again, people did votes for me on Twitter about which stories they would like to hear from me first, and once again, the good fan and the bad fan stories have won out. I'm worried that if this keeps up, I might run out of stories, but hopefully I won't. I know I mentioned that I do have a lot of stories, but I admit it does take time for me to remember some of them. No, I am delaying the inevitable, so we're just gonna get started. Of course, we're gonna start with the good fan first, and I'm gonna do stories that actually happened this year for me so far. Yes, unfortunately, I've had some really bad stories this year happen, but I've also had some really good stories. So we're gonna start with the good fan. This year at Winnie City PonyCon, I was doing my thing. I was Lightning Bliss. I believe I was not a community guest, but I was a vendor there at the Rainbow Table. And I believe I also got my own space. I can't remember if I was sharing with Keyframe or not. I know I was sitting next to her though, and I was between Leximus. One particular fan, he's like one of those really smart, good fans that was very tactful and coming to my table. Like, he wouldn't like stay at my table for too long and just blurt out the 10,000 questions. He was tactful. So he would go around the vendor hall and go to panels and stop by my table to buy something and ask me a question. After thanking me, he would leave. He'd come back in an hour or 2 hours later, buy something from me again, and then ask me a question. This cycle rinsed and repeated, and this fan happened to be a very young man, about maybe 10 years old, and sorry if you're watching this and I got your age wrong, buddy. And he was just the cutest little kid. He had I wish I could describe him, but for privacy reasons, I'm not going to. But he was a sweet little boy, and he loved supporting my table. He was very enthusiastic with his questions. Like, he was just asking me in general how I came up with my OC, how do I come up with my ideas, what kind of software or art programs can he use so he can get better in his artwork, because he was striving to be an artist. It was just great talking to this kid. And of course, he was not alone. He was accompanied by his parents, his mom mainly, and then on the last day, his father accompanied him. But I specifically remember one question that he brought to my attention. I think it went something along the lines of, how do you stay safe on the internet? Or it evolved into that conversation. And looking to his mom for cues, so I didn't overstep my boundaries, I ended up going on a bit of a I want to call it a rant, but more just a very serious conversation about what it means to be safe on the internet. And I told him I have learned from experience that it doesn't really matter how old you are. Anything you can do can put you, well, not anything you could do, but there are ways you could put yourself at risk on the internet if you're not careful and cautious and have some common sense and whatnot. And I ended up going down the list of things to not do while you're on the internet. For instance, never ever share your personal information, like your full real name, your mailing address, your phone number, your social security card, stuff like that. Never fully talk about your personal life until you're absolutely comfortable with that. And of course, never ever do anything that you do not want to do. If somebody is pressuring you or telling you that you have to do this, never be pressured. And obviously, if you are an underage person, you need to inform your parents of what you're doing on the internet for their security as well as your own, because the last thing you want to do is for someone to take advantage of you. And really, this just goes for all ages. If you feel like you're being pressured by someone, if you feel like they're making you uncomfortable, you have that right to block them and to stop talking to them, because it's the internet. Anyways, I kind of just kept going on and on and on. And yeah, it got to a point where I ended up stepping back and apologizing to the mom for my ranting. And no, she was really, really happy that I talked to her son about it, because it was something she was very concerned about. We are in a day and age where it's just so easy for children at his age to go on the internet, meet somebody online, and they get manipulated into telling people where they live and have their heartstrings pulled. And it's just a really bad situation. And I was super glad I was able able to help give her son advice on that department, and he took it all in stride. He thanked me for the advice, thanked me for all I did. His mother shook hands with me. I gave him a little hug because he was such a cute little guy, and he was so smart and so full of enthusiasm and creativity. I love kids, if you can't tell. So that was the good story, but now we gotta move on to the bad story that happened this year, and I have to admit this is probably one of the worst physical interactions I've had with a bad fan. And this is why when I say this, I cannot stress this enough. When you go to any convention, really you should not go alone, and here's why. So this was during BabsCon, and before anybody asks, yes, I did express this concern with BabsCon staff members, and they were very sympathetic, and even though I managed to handle the situation, they did tell me that were to happen again to please report it to them, and I agreed that I would. So before anybody questions anything about where was BabsCon security, please note that I did inform them this happened, and again, I wasn't alone. So it was during the I believe it was Saturday night of BabsCon, and I was with Dr. Wolf, Josh Scorcher, and Jack Nolan, and we decided to go up to my room with I believe the Wilstonator and his wife Katie Patterson were there. Oh, and my niece was there too. My niece had stayed up in the room the whole time because she wanted to catch up on some homework. Anyways, we decided to go to my room because we were gonna watch the new episode that had been aired, and we were gonna do live reactions to it. So we wanted to have some privacy while we do that. We start heading towards the elevator, and I noticed the bad fan almost right off the bat getting off the escalator. Now, before anybody asks, Bliss, how did you know that he was a bad person or whatnot? It's not so much that I knew he was bad, but more like I sensed something was wrong. This individual was setting off red flags to me. Call it a sixth sense, or in my case, it's because I'm empathic. I could just sense emotions, whatnot, and this guy was giving off some not comfortable emotions. There was just something wrong, and I kept one eye on him as we entered the elevator because oddly enough, he gets off the escalator and starts following our group onto the elevator. I thought this was really odd, so that was a minor red flag. Then the man proceeded to ask about, yes, this was an adult. He had to be at least 5'8" to 6 feet tall. I know everybody seems tall to me, but he was as tall as Josh Scorcher, and okay, that's tall for me, okay? Anyways, he starts talking to Jack about something that Jack, I guess, spoke to him about earlier and gave him thanks for giving him advice. Jack said it was no problem, and then continued on his conversation with Josh Scorcher. So we get off on the third floor. I believe it was the third floor for me, and we start to head towards my room. We were almost at the halfway point to my room when I realized this fan was following us off and quite literally trying to tag along with us to our room. This was the biggest red flag. Now, it's one thing for me to dismiss fans who are trying to follow me to my room, and I normally don't have a problem with it, but this was a little bit more uncomfortable for me because it's not just where I'm staying or my friends are staying. My niece is there, and I am responsible for her safety. I promised my sister I would look after her and make sure she was safe and comfortable, and the last thing I wanted was some strange man entering our room, and I didn't give her fair warning. So I calmly turned to the fan and told him, hey, look, it was nice of you to stop by and talk, but we are having a private meeting, and it's time for you to leave, so take care, okay? The fan proceeded to give me a very uncomfortable smile. There was just something very wrong with the look in his eye, and he ended up saying back to me, Lightning Bliss, you are so cute. The tone, I guess, was best described as like he were talking to a puppy or a kid, not an adult human being. There was nothing right about the tone he was. I mean, if I could mimic it, it was Lightning Bliss, you're so cute. Something like that, followed by the creepy smile. So yeah, you get the idea. I The red flags were now ringing fire alarm bells. Ding, 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 ding. Time to get out of here. I said, okay, nice talking to you. I turned to walk away, thinking that was the end of it. I didn't see this coming, and my friends Doc, Josh, and Jack did not see it until the very last second because it happened so fast. But this bad fan proceeded to reach out, place his hand on my head, and stroke down all the way down my lower back, close to where my bottom is. It was very, very bad. No touching. Guys, I have to say something. Never, ever physically touch someone without their permission, let alone stroke them down their back. Nobody touches me that way, ever. Only my husband is allowed to ever touch me that way. This is just bad, no touching all around. So after he did this, I immediately reflexed, jumped as far from him as I could, threw up my hands at a stopping motion, and said, "Do not touch me." Unfortunately, either this person was on the spectrum or he didn't hear me, but I'm pretty sure he did because I said this literally 3 feet from his face. He continued to walk forward in an attempt to grab me, still holding that very creepy smile. I have my hands up in defense at this point because I'm in flight or fight mode, and unfortunately I think I was about to fight for my life here because this guy was continuing to physically try and grab me. Luckily though, like I said, I was not alone. Jack Nolan, Josh Scorcher, and Dr. Wolf, all 3 of them got in between him and me and held up their hands for him to stop. Jack proceeded to say, "Man, the lady said no, you need to leave now." The fan continued to persist, trying to get past them, saying, "Oh, come on, can I just give her one little hug? She's so adorable." Jack remained firm and told him, "It's time to stop, please go away. The lady said no." And with that, the fan said, "Okay, you guys take care, bye," like nothing happened, and he walked away. Ugh, I admit, guys, this was a scary one for me. I have never been physically touched like this by a complete and total stranger. I never had to have my friends actually physically come to my defense before, but I'm so glad that they were there, and they were 3 very tall men. I mean, Doc is a tree, no offense, Doc, you are. Jack is former military police, and of course Josh is a Marine. I have never been so happy to have 3 tall friends looking after me, because this guy was not a shrimp. He was very tall, looked pretty powerful. I would have had a definitely hard time getting him off me if he were to have grabbed me in any concept. So yeah, guys, never ever try to grab someone or touch someone without their permission. You could get into a whole lot of trouble. Guys, if you're at cons, don't go alone. Try to be with a group or friends as much as you can, because these things do happen and it's scary. And that's really all I can stress about. Be safe, please. And with that, everybody, that is my stories of the good fan and the bad fan. More likely I'll be doing more of these in the future if people still like to hear what I have to say. If you want to take part in which stories I tell next, I will occasionally host a poll where you can vote on my Twitter account. So I really hope you enjoyed these stories, and thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and of course if you'd like to donate to my Patreon, I would appreciate it. You can always find it in the links below or at the end of this video. Thanks again, every pony, or everyone, and keep an eye out for those rainbows. They will make you smile.